I'm Steve Gandara. Have been got sucked into the corporate transformation business by the Lord uh, 47 years ago. We have I guess you could call it a stealth ministry um, to corporate America that uses a combination of scientific instruments, AI and biblical content, although only the believers who participate know that it's biblical. The unbelievers think it's just good psychology, and it is because the Bible's the best psychology and it works.
Mhm.
We serve everything from, our smallest client corporately is probably I think it's an eight employee commercial real estate firm, all the way to big companies like, Toyota. We served Toyota for 35 years. We've done projects for Costco, for Microsoft, for Subway sandwiches, lots of big companies. So, and I guess you could say the core scripture of our process and content is Romans 12:2. If you're familiar with Romans 12:1 and 2, we're commanded to give our bodies as a living sacrifice and then be transformed by the renewing of our minds. And you'll see as we get into the content, they tell us in church that we need to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. They just don't teach us how. So our process is about that. We also do we have a proprietary brand of executive coaching that also is about individual transformation of leaders. And then we have a curriculum that we deliver both to corporate America and we license to universities. Dallas Baptist University here in Dallas in Texas has licensed our curriculum for their MBA program and actually has a class that the professor uses our content in their professional and career development space. We're also in conversations with Liberty University in Virginia about doing the same. So just think Romans 12:2, and much of what we'll talk about will make sense. Any questions before we get started?
Uh, Steve, I just want to poke in real quickly and say, hey, could you just tell us real quickly when you came to faith? Just tell us a little bit about you real quick, because I know you get into the business side and maybe it's included in your presentation, but if it's not, tell us when Jesus became real for you and why you love the Lord.
I actually got sucked into Jesus about the same time that I got sucked into this work, this ministry. I was in my 20s, finished college, got back from the Army. My dad was a football coach and a teacher from West Texas who had gotten into business, and he never stopped being a coach and a teacher, and he was always bringing in training programs one after another. And I applied what I learned in the two training programs back to back, one on the importance of setting goals and how to set goals in all areas of your life, not just your business or your finances, and then another on the psychology of achieving goals. And as a result of applying what I learned, I achieved every single one of my goals. I grew up Roman Catholic. Our family was like blue bloods without the cops. We were in mass every Sunday, sat in the second row. The priest told us that we are the family that prayed together, so we would stay together. And went to Catholic schools from kindergarten through high school. Met my wife in high school, Catholic high school. Then we got married between junior and senior year in college. Got back from the Army and achieved all of my goals using what I learned. My spiritual goal was to find a church that I could relate to, because at that time, my faith was dry and boring because the church was dry and boring. And what came through was that there was nothing wrong with the church. The problem was me, that I was a taker instead of a giver. And as I, used what I learned to become a giver instead of a taker, I achieved all of my goals and got totally depressed, Didn't know why. I always prayed the Lord got me through college, with, great success, just praying to get out of trouble. Kept me from getting shot in Vietnam, again, praying to get out of trouble. And one thing led to another. So was very depressed, seeking the Lord for, how do I get out of this depression? It's dark. Looking for signs in the clouds, couldn't see any signs in the clouds. And then all of a sudden it occurred to me that if I ever totally surrendered, he'd send me to Africa to live in a mud hut, and I didn't want anything to do with that. But you know, my encounter with God was when I was so angry that you know, I screamed out, even living in a mud hut is better than this. I think I said, "Damn mud hut is better than this. I'll take the damn mud hut." And you know, I heard the still small voice for the first time in my life. He was
Mm.
laughing. He was laughing hilariously. And when I inquired as to what was so funny, the response was, "You know, you think I'm so stupid? I would send somebody like you to live in a mud hut. I have mud hut people, mud huts. I want you right where you are." And then he showed me a scripture that reinforced that, and the depression left immediately. It was like a vapor that left. I didn't
Wow.
know what happened, so I called a friend of mine. You know, my family business, my dad's family business was an automotive business, and we gave cars to the Fellowship of Christian Athletes for their missionaries. So I called the state director, told him what happened, Southern Baptist boy. He says, "Well, Steve, you got saved." I said, "What's that?" He explained it to me. And, you know, he explained it to me. And I went home
Love.
and I told my wife, "Honey, I got saved today." And she says, "Well, weren't you always?" And so we got to talking about the difference between her faith and my faith. And what we realized was that she had the praying nuns in Oklahoma, and I had the ruler slapping nuns in Texas. And she was saved from the time she was in kindergarten. But in any event, I got really serious then, took what I learned on renewing the mind out of the process, and I set goals on every in Christ scripture I could find in the New Testament. And I had manifestations of all 9 gifts of the Holy Spirit. I prayed for a Catholic priest. God healed him of a heart attack. Had experiences with miracles. And anyway, kind of, you know, that was the beginning, and I've just kind of been at it ever since. That answer
Oh my.
that answer your question?
Wow.
Okay, Rod.
I love the way you do that, Steve, because you got this business acumen about you, and you want to get to the nuts and bolts, but you got this powerful story that's full of high octane. It's like we've just watched, a SpaceX rocket take off there for a moment. Now we're going to get into the work, but it's good. So
Yeah,
another
yeah,
time we need to get more of that story because wow, I,
y-
I love I love just how you shared that and how God has totally
yeah,
moved in power
yeah,
in your life. From
yeah,
religion to relationship to power and
yeah.
I'm sitting in Acts right now, my Bible reading. So you're speaking my language right now. It's exciting.
Well, another key turning point, and then I'll go on with the presentation so that you all can capture some of the content that you can apply to your lives and businesses. The Another key turning point was um, late 30s, early 40s, had a marriage crisis, didn't know what it was. You know, went to marriage counselors. We were counseling the counselors, and because we knew more than they did. And so I was a runner, and I would run, I don't know, 3 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles. And, you know, I was thanking God for healing my marriage with every stride. And, you know, one day, you know, when we lived in Seattle, so I went on a long, beautiful run down Lake Washington, came back. My wife was at the front door with that look in her eye. And I'm, you know, and I'd been praying, you know, with every stride, thank you, God, for healing my marriage. And, you know, she says, you know, we need to talk. And so we're going up the stairs to the bedroom, and I'm praying. You know, at that time we had 2 young teenagers, 2 children. And you know, Lord, please don't let me step on my tongue again. Help me say the right thing. We get into the room, she closes the door. All of a sudden I realize how unhappy she is. And what came out of my mouth without me thinking was, "I can't believe how unhappy you are. You need to be happy. If it'll make you happy, I'll move out, take my addiction to achievement with me, and I'll support you and the kids for the rest of your life. But you need to be happy." Anyway, she broke, began to weep. Lord healed our marriage immediately. And then she shared that she, you know, decided she'd wanted more children. I'd already had the surgery. So I called a friend in children's services to ask if they had any orphans we could check out for the holidays. He laughed. He said, "There's no more orphans, only foster children. And you can, you know, you have to go to class for 6 weeks to get licensed, but we have an orientation in January. Why don't you come?" We went. We took a placement of two, you know, an infant baby girl, 18-month little boy, kept them for 6 months, fell in love with them. Our kids fell in love with them when they went back. It broke our hearts. So we adopted the next 7 and kept all of them, and they almost killed us. You know, they almost killed us. I mean, those kids, yeah, those kids
I got
committed
some of those
every
stories.
sin.
Oh,
Yeah,
Steve.
yeah, they committed every sin but murder and suicide. Then they tried that. By the grace of God, they're all still alive. Anyway, made a vow, no, after 7, 7 plus our 2, 9 total, no more kids. And then God had a different plan, and we ended up with 2 more. So we have 11 children. Our youngest is 22, our
Love
oldest is
it.
51.
I
So
love it. I
yeah,
love it.
yeah, lots of battle scars. Anyway, if you can you all see the screen share okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we're going to talk about um, transformation from a standpoint of your individual life, your leadership, as well as organization or business, all the way from a small startup to a global global 100. As you zero in on it and look at it, you've got to come to grips with the most misunderstood word in corporate America, which is culture. Everybody talks about it all the time, but nobody ever looked up the definition. And the reason they didn't look up the definition is because they think they already know, and they do. Why would you look up a definition of a word you already know the meaning of? But the problem is, it's a different definition for everybody. And it's like the whole world is talking about fruit, and one sees an apple, and another an orange, another a banana. If they're in Latin America, it's a papaya or an avocado. So it's massive confusion trying to get your arms around Jello, but nobody knows that they're confused. So if you Googled it, you're going to get 2 definitions, one from Harvard, one from Cambridge. Here they are on the screen. You put them together, and culture is the beliefs that govern how people behave individually and at work, because corporate culture doesn't just mean companies. It means like corporate worship. It's any body of people. And so corporate culture is the beliefs that govern how people behave individually and collectively as a body. And like if someone believes my boss is a jerk, they're going to behave totally differently than someone who believes my boss is wonderful and I love working for them. If a teenager believes all my parents want to do is control my life, they're going to behave totally differently than a teenager who believes my parents have my best interest at heart. So it's about beliefs that govern how people behave individually and collectively in teams or organizations, or churches or anybody. And the problem with the guy who believes that his boss is a jerk, he may have a great boss, but 2 bosses ago, he had a boss that was a jerk. And so he's viewing everything through that lens and acts and responds and treats his boss like he's a jerk and talks about it to everybody. Okay. Pop quiz. Quick question. Who knows? And by the way, I'm going to send Rod copies of my book, Transform Then Thrive, for whoever answers these questions correctly first. So pop quiz number 1. What is culture?
Oh, I know.
Go. Tell me, what is it?
Beliefs, right? It's beliefs.
Yeah, it's the beliefs that govern how we behave. Exactly. So you got one, Rod. Yeah, it's the beliefs that govern how we behave individually and collectively. It's all about beliefs. Now, the problem with beliefs is 95% of human beliefs are subconscious. We don't know what we believe. The International Masterson Institute tells us that 95% of our thoughts, feelings, and memories live in our subconscious, that our brain can handle 11 million bits of information a second, but consciously we can only process 40 bits, not 40 million bits, but 40 bits compared to 11 million a second. Dr. Bruce Lipton at Stanford tells us that most people don't even acknowledge that their subconscious mind is at play, when in fact it's a million times more powerful than the conscious mind. The Bible calls the subconscious mind the heart. If you look up the New Testament definition in the Greek, the heart is cardia with a K, like a cardiac, but that's the human pumping heart. With a K, it means the centralmost core part of your thought process, the part of your being that connects right to the spirit, which is where the Holy Spirit resides. So pop quiz number 2. You ready? Why is culture so difficult to manage? Anybody got an answer?
Because people don't know what they believe.
Absolutely. We don't know what we believe. It's all subconscious. So if we don't know what we believe, you guys are smart. I mean, you get these questions, you pay attention, you get these questions faster than most. So we don't know what we believe. So it's a matter of we're living our life based upon lies that we think is truth. One of my partners, Dr. Terry S. Smith, is a licensed ordained minister. He's 83 years old. He's a practicing therapist, a Boston University doctorate. When he was in school 53-ish years ago, he learned a tool developed by an atheist psychiatrist that if you use it the way that it's designed, it'll send you into depression. But he flipped it and has built a ministry on that. And over the 53 years he's been in ministry as a licensed practicing therapist, as well as a pastor and ordained minister, he's served everything from women who are sex trafficked in India to PTSD survivors to corporate executives, CEOs, you name it, across the globe. And what he's discovered in all of his work is that every child between birth and 12 years old goes through some kind of emotional trauma. Sometimes the child is abused and it's very painful. Sometimes the child has a great life, but they were bullied in middle school. But at the moment of that emotional trauma, that pain, when the child is feeling emotional pain, the devil sneaks in and whispers a lie. It's because you're not smart enough. You're not good enough. You're not loved. They don't love you. They don't want you. And he's done this for tens of thousands of people. And guess what? These lies fit in one paragraph. So when you've got this child who is now 50 and they're an executive under stress, they're being damaged by, or they're being led and guided by an emotionally damaged 12-year-old and don't know it. So in essence, it's the lies that we have packed in our subconscious that the enemy uses as a strategy to disrupt, derail individuals from fulfilling their God-given purpose, organizations, teams, companies. So it's about truth and lies. So I'm going to show a short video that will give you an example of how powerful this is. If you ever watch the show National Geographic Brain Games, they do scientific experiments with people, with hidden cameras. Take a look at this one that tells you how culture really works. So the narrator says, similar forces are subconsciously shaping the way we think right now. The Wharton professor says, our brains literally reward us for following the crowd. My Bible says, take heed what you hear, quoting Jesus, and that we live in the world, but we're not of the world, yet the world is governed by what the Bible calls the God of this world and is constantly working to suck us in, and we don't even know it because it's all happening subconsciously. So what most Christian business leaders know how to do is they know how to go to church, they know how to get saved, they know how to pray, they know how to read their Bibles, they know how to tithe, they know how to lead with honesty and integrity, but they run and lead their businesses the same way the world does. Why is it that the suicide rate is within a couple of points in the church than it is outside of the church? Why is it that the divorce rate is within a couple of points in the church than outside the church? Because we lead and run our businesses the same way the world does. So what they don't know is how to discover the hidden limiting beliefs that are stored deep in their subconscious minds and their teams. What they don't know is the skill, and it's a skill, a science and an art and a skill to change them. What they don't know is this science and art of how to renew your mind, even though Romans 12:2 tells us to, how to change limiting beliefs into liberating beliefs, how to lead their people to do the same thing, and how to lead in a manner that produces an excellent culture. So pop quiz number 3. Are you ready? Let's see who gets this one.
This one's for you, Greg.
Yeah, let's see who gets this one. So eyes are useless when the mind is blind, but let's see how blind we are. Psychiatrists, not psychologists. We talked about psychology. Now we're going to psychiatry. We should talk about brain science as well, but we don't have time to today. A scotoma is a Greek word used by psychiatrists. It literally means blindness. In psychiatry, a scotoma is a sensory locking out of the environment. Something is there. We don't see it. We can't hear it. We don't smell it, feel it, teach it. It locks out the senses. So if you think you lost your keys, and you're saying, I lost my keys, where's my keys? I'm late for a meeting. And then one of your kids or your spouse says, well, what's that over there on the counter? And that's your keys. That's called a scotoma. It's a blind spot, sensory locking out of the environment. Okay, this is a scotoma test. Let's see how well we can do here, and who gets it right first. What you see on the sentence, I want you to read this sentence that's on the screen one time to yourself, quietly, and then we'll do the test. Okay, everybody through reading? All right, the test is, I'm going to put it up again, and this time I want you to read the sentence through a second time, but as you do, I want you to count the number of letter Fs, F as in the word finish. Count the number of Fs, write down the number of Fs you count in the entire sentence, and then we'll see how we did. You're looking for the letter F as in finished. Okay, write down how many you counted. Write them down. All right, did anybody just count two and only two? Any two? Quick show of hands. 1, 2. How about 3? Any 3s? Out 2 3s. How about 4? Any 4s? 5? No 5s. 6? 1 6. 7? No 7s. More than 7. Okay, what you're experiencing is a scotoma. There are actually 7 Fs, 7 Fs in the sentence. Now, to get this right, you can't help each other, but let's see, we're told that you're just not trying hard enough. You're just not praying hard enough. You're just not believing hard enough. You need to have more faith. Let's see if it helps. So I'm going to put it up again, and I want you to try as hard as you can to find them. I just told you there are 7. Ready? We'll give you 10 seconds. Go. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Anybody see 7? Nobody. Okay. All right. How about count the ofs instead of the Fs? Count the ofs instead of the Fs.
5 of those.
The ofs.
Oh,
and
and
the
you
ofs.
scientific.
Yeah. Now the reason, Jesus called this the log in your eye, and we're told that we need to get the log out of our own eye before we can help our brother get the splinter out of their eye. And scotomas are genetic to the human race. The reason that happens is because the strongest motivation in a human being is the desire to maintain sanity, to prove that you're not crazy for believing what you believe. It's stronger even than self-preservation. People will die in the Middle East today to prove they're not crazy for believing what they believe. And we didn't know this, but when we were in the first grade learning how to read, we programmed our subconscious to sound letters out phonetically. And we said over and over again, F sounds like finished, not like of. So when we have the truth ingrained into our belief system that F sounds like F, not like V, it causes our brain to block out the truth of what's really there. So let's see what you can get, who can get this one right. Pop quiz number 4. What's the biggest obstacle to a successful kingdom business? What's the biggest obstacle? What do you say? Anybody can answer. Whoever goes first gets it right wins the prize.
We don't run our business like we live our lives.
Close.
Worldly views is constantly fighting the worldly views, for sure.
Yeah, who said that one?
John,
you're close. You win. So really, it's discovering the hidden limiting beliefs, that the world has planted in our mind, that the enemy has stored deep in our subconscious minds, and the skill to change them. And until we know that, we could be living our lives, going to church, praying, doing all the things that we're taught. And if we're subconsciously believing a lie, interesting, when I first met Dr. Smith, who taught me this, was just a couple of years ago. And I discovered through his process that I had been living a lie from the time I was a child that was limiting my marriage, limiting my faith, limiting my business, limiting my finances, limiting everything in my life. And until we know and have the skill of identifying, what are those limiting beliefs and changing them, we're stuck. So 2 biggest lies in corporate America. Lie number 1, that the church also believes, if you have a successful business, then you have an excellent culture. No, you don't. Less than 10% of successful businesses, not struggling businesses, successful businesses, have excellent cultures, less than 10%. Lie number two, if you have God, mom, and apple pie corporate values, then you have an excellent culture. No, you don't. If any of you remember a few years ago, there was a oil and gas company, global company by the name of Enron, who went bankrupt. Their executives went to jail. They lost billions in shareholder value. A few thousand people lost their jobs. And their accounting firm, Arthur Andersen, even went out of business because of the scandal. Guess what Enron's first corporate value was? Integrity. How well did that work? Well, it didn't. One of my good friends who's a whistleblower, who is a professor now, he used to be the lead of all of statistics for the Boeing company in Seattle, now teaches at a Christian university, interviewed the whistleblower at Enron. What she told him was what took Enron down was an unwritten corporate value. You know what it was? Positivity. How in the world can a beautiful word, a beautiful value like positivity, take down a global company, send executives to jail, destroy their accounting firm, thousands of people lose their jobs, and billions of shareholder value? Because anytime someone came in to the C-suite with negative feedback, they were shouted down for not being positive. And pretty soon people stopped talking about the negative feedback, and the rest is history. If you have God, mom, and apple pie corporate values, you don't have an excellent culture. It just means you've got nice values, but if nobody's living them, and if they're living subconscious lives they don't know about, instead, you're stuck. Biggest lie in a Christian business. Well, we're a Christian company. We have a great culture. No, you don't. You might, but you don't know until you see the data. So what you see on the screen is called a circumplex. It's the global standard of measuring corporate culture. One of our partners has been measuring corporate culture from up there close to you guys in the University of Michigan for more than 50 years, nearly 50 years, and has identified this particular tool that's become the global standard of measuring culture globally. So we have access to data in every civilized nation, organizations in every civilized nation on the planet. And what it tells you is that whether your people are setting and achieving goals and growing, whether they're actualizing and fulfilling their God-given potential, whether they have respect for people, whether they have unity that celebrates diversity, or they're just, operating under the DEI lie that's planted in their subconscious because the government stuck it in there. By the way, those four are all biblical values. Achievement is working as unto the Lord. Self-actualization is fulfilling your God-given potential. Respect for people is love your neighbor as yourself. Team unity that celebrates diversity is the last prayer that Jesus prayed before he left the planet in John 17. It measures, do you have robust dialogue or sneaky corporate politics? Do you have proactive problem solving, or are people avoiding conflict and problems never get solved? Do you have healthy debates that end in unity, or are you always fighting about something or having a meeting after the meeting? Do you have effective leadership or power-based mosaic style command and control that only works while the boss is watching? Do you have effective leadership or micromanagement? Do you have healthy competition versus sneaky corporate backstabbing where people are competing against each other to get the boss's attention, like the NFL team in the preseason, where everybody's beating each other up to get the coach's attention, instead of the NFL team in the postseason, where everybody's pulling together to compete against the other guys? Do you have full ownership of mistakes or blame fixing? Do you have healthy innovation or resisting change? By the way, the tool tells you this, and it's all subconscious. We don't know that we have it. Okay, let's talk about how culture affects your business. A few years ago, late 80s, early 90s, two Harvard professors, John Cotter and James Heskett, did a 11-year study where they looked at Wall Street companies. And the question was, does the culture of the company affect their business? And the first thing that they discovered was that there were actually two types of cultures. In the book, it's still available on Amazon if you like data, corporate culture and performance. What they found was they had defensive, what they called non-adaptive cultures versus adaptive culture. So what they didn't know is there were two scientists out of the University of Michigan that were behavioral scientists, industrial organizational psychologists, that discovered the same thing 20 years earlier, only they called them defensive cultures versus constructive cultures. The business scientist at Harvard learned it by studying data on corporate culture and finances and numbers. the scientists at the University of Michigan learned it by studying people and groups of people. Then you have defensive, then later got split into passive defensive and aggressive defensive. So you guys have heard those terms before, I'm sure. So what they studied was revenue. What were the sales of these 207 firms over 11 years? Employment, how many people did they hire, which tells you about the growth of the company. Shareholder value, how much money was left at the end of the year for the shareholders, and bottom line net profit. Well, guess what? The non-adaptive or defensive cultures increased their revenue 166% over 11 years. 10% a year revenue growth, not bad. They hired 36% more people, but they only increased their shareholder value by 74% for an 11-year investment. That's not a very good return. And that was because even though they brought in 166% of revenue, their bottom line was only 1%. Conversely, the constructive, proactive cultures, 682% to 166, 4 times the revenue, 8 times the people hired, 12 times the shareholder value. Anybody want to guess what the net profit was? What do you think? 2 times, 3 times, 10 times, 20 times? What do you think? What do you think?
10%?
How many?
10%?
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody think higher?
Higher.
Yeah. How
50%.
much higher? Yeah.
50.
How about 756 to 1?
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So many of these companies, and now keep in mind, biblical truths are truths no matter whether it's ungodly people live in them or godly people. Biblical truths are truths. God has put kingdom laws in the universe, like, gravity is a law of physics. So what happens here is that the same companies who were in this study are still in business today. The defensive cultures, the retailers were Kmart and JCPenney. Anybody follow what they're doing today? Selling properties to come out of bankruptcy. The tech company was Xerox. Anybody know what Xerox is, what business they're in today? They're still in business. Nobody ever does. Texaco was oil and gas. Fill up your car at Texaco station lately, probably not. And then the airline was Western Airlines that became Delta, and then Delta merged with Northwest to come out of bankruptcy. Now, conversely, the constructive cultures were Walmart and Costco on the retail side, HP on the tech side, Shell on oil and gas, and Southwest Airlines before they forgot to take ice off of wings in Texas ice storms in Dallas, but were the airlines. So in essence, not only is culture affect your life, it affects the bottom line of your business. So I want to share with you a short case study. Dave Jaworski, who you'll get to know very well shortly, has been one of our good friends and clients for many, many years. In fact, he's currently serving as the principal program manager for both Microsoft Teams and Microsoft Copilot. He was formerly the president of Microsoft University. He is a believer, a Roman Catholic evangelical believer. He's going to tell you the story about when they hired us, or he hired us to help him transform the culture at Microsoft University and what they were dealing with and where they ended up. When we finish, I'll give you a little bit of David's faith journey behind it, because we edited a lot of it out just so that people didn't get freaked out.
Came in, I was asked to take over a P&L operation, profit and loss statement. I met with the person who was running it, who was on her way out. She was going to run for Seattle City Council. She was moving into politics. And I said, where are you as far as a P&L? She said, we're a few points behind plan. And I said, well, plan was to be +7 to +15 on the bottom line. So 7 to 15% profit. And she says, no, I think we're more like break even. I'm like, well, that wouldn't be a few points. That would be 7 to 15 points difference. So I then asked the finance team to get me an assessment where I wanted to put a peg in the wall and say, where are we starting? What's the starting point for this journey that we're on? So let's back up a little bit. 7 to 10%? No, we're about break even. Okay, so where are we? So I got the report from finance, minus 70% on the bottom line. Losing money like crazy. Minus 70. And then I got called into a meeting with Bill Gates, Frank Gaudette, our CFO, and Steve Ballmer. And they said, and Steve said it, summed up the sentiment of the meeting. Hey, we believe in you. We want you to turn this around. And we don't want this to be a loss. We want this to be a profit center. Steve said, we'd like you to turn it around in 2 years. And then in typical Steve fashion said, and don't let it take 2 years. So that was the message. So we brought in the program to get everybody on the same page. I believe that alignment is critical. And it's not just a skill for business. It's a skill for your marriage. It's a skill for your relationship. If you're both heading for the same target, then you may waver around and go off course, but that same target can pull you forward and get you there. Fast forward, what happened? Well, remember you've got 2 years and don't let it take 2 years. 10 months later, we were cash flow positive. We went from dead last in U.S. sales and marketing division to the only team that beat plan every single month of that fiscal year. And people made life choice changes, changed their beliefs about themselves. Part of it was transparency. Up until then, they'd been told, the financial information, you don't need to worry about that. We'll just talk about what you do and just what you do. I taught everybody how to read a P&L. I went and stood in front of them every month and told them where we were on the P&L. It's bad news. This number's red. This number is what it means. This is what we have to do to change it. I need all your help to do it. I had some people who were pushing back hard, but eventually we turned the corner. We got everybody there. And it was in large part to the content that you're learning today about scotomas, blind spots, lock in, lock out. All those types of techniques were what we used to turn that corner. So I encourage each of you to be courageous, to stand up for what you believe, to lead with passion, and to take all of this and put every single bit of it into practice. It works. I built a career on implementing everything that we've been learning.
Okay, so what Dave didn't tell you is that when he was asked to take over Microsoft University and he did the audit and found out they were 70% in the red instead of 5% behind plan, his predecessor was LGBTQ before that became a popular term. And she had loaded the whole management team full of LGBTQ leaders. And when he came in and had a Bible on his desk, they thought he was the devil, so they targeted him. They didn't blackball him; they targeted him. And in the process, he not only transformed the culture of the company and their bottom line, but he lost no people. He had many of his leaders who had lifestyle changes, and it was all about addressing the culture. Not, and leading with love and dignity, not any kind of politics. So in essence, when you take a look at culture, it's a pretty powerful term.
Toyota is built upon 2 pillars. If you don't know this, respect for people. From day one, when Mr. Toyota started our company, respect for people. Those are the 3 words. Second pillar is Kaizen. It's a Japanese word. It means continuous improvement. 2 pillars. Respect for people, continuous improvement. Respect for people, continuous improvement. High performance teams look about how I am giving to the team, how I'm giving to the outcome. Poor performing teams are like, what's in it for me? At that time, there was no WCMO. They were very good, high performers, culture low, attitudes low. Performance high, effort high, attitudes low. You say, well, Jack, if it's already performing high, what are you trying? Because that was not sustainable, because people were getting worn out. People were wanting to leave. People were fighting others. They were literally, some people were succeeding by hurting others. If you ever look at your life and you think you're increasing by decreasing someone else, I promise you, you're about ready to get trampled on. We got it? Here's what happens. The team started slowly, but over the next year and a half, over 18 months, 19 months I think to be exact, our overall culture scores improved 81%. Overall leadership effectiveness increased by 14%. One of my key VPs, this is awesome. One of my closest friends, he decided to totally go for it. He was not totally a buyer of what we were doing at first. Let me just be honest with you. This is one of my closest friends, and he's like, dude, you're a little bit foofy on me. Like, this is just, you're a little like, I'm not sure I'm feeling this. Seriously. And maybe you feel that way. How much of this is really like real? Well, I'll tell you. He's like, I'm going for it. Let's go. He personally had improved his own leadership scores by 62%. It changed his whole team. His whole unit, one of my VPs, went on to not only be stronger, but he got elevated another 2 times in the company because people were rallying around him. Our team happens to be now, whatever it is, 1,600 people or something. We're going together. What happened on this WCMO, at the end of this, we created what we called a world-class marketing organization, and we had this vision, what it looked like, and every member was going for it. Here's the end of the story. 2 years later, when we got to the Toyota survey regarding enablement, the Toyota marketing empowerment ended up at number 1. From 27 to 1 in 2 years.
It's 2021, the kickoff of the new season.
Early morning before the race, I just had this sinking feeling in my gut that something wasn't right. I had an amazing swim, and so I was super excited. I'm in the front of the race, one of the first guys getting on the bike.
Tio in 4th, what a great swim.
I remember the exact moment when things started to go south. I was tucked in an aero position, and I just had a shooting, kind of spreading pain across my chest. I actually thought in my own head, am I having a heart attack right now? Once you start dropping out of races, it gets in your head, and it makes it a lot easier to drop out in the future. So I just couldn't let that negativity get into my racing career, and I had to shut the door on it. After the race, I just continually felt worse and worse. They brought in the big defib machine, and I think they were, ready for me to just flatline at some point. So that's the only point in the whole process where I honestly thought to myself, are you gonna die? But put that thought out of my head, and I said, that's not gonna happen. And we moved on.
First of all, pizza and beer before triathlon, bad idea. Having a heart attack and finishing, also probably a worst idea. So don't do that. That unconscious competence stage, that doesn't mean you're there forever, right? Life is always going to be throwing us different things. We're always going to get new curveballs or speed bumps. And this was a huge one for me.
One shot, that's all that you got. That's all that I know. Foot on the gas, 155 on the road. You could be a friend of me, an enemy.
It's been a long time.
We were working really well together on the bike. Matt Hansen was in full-on mode. I had a good first half marathon, and then the wheels came off, and around 19 miles I started questioning what I was doing. I was suffering, but we pulled it back together. At that point, 6 miles to go. Walked the aid stations, kind of rehydrated, cooled off, and got the job done and barely got across the line. After the heart attack last year, it was pretty special to be able to come back my first Ironman, get on the podium at the Ironman North American Championships. Definitely not a small task by any means. I'm back, baby! What a day.
Well, one of the things that you said, I just wanted to ask, like the thing that I want to get some clarity that a human being will go through anything more than anything else to verify that they're not crazy.
Yes. To maintain sanity.
To maintain sanity. Is like, what is the difference of that in like man's first, what they'll do, jump through hoops or do anything to, for water? Like what is the mental difference between those two?
Well, they're very similar in that jumping through hoops for water. Am I reverberating on your end?
A little bit.
Hear you.
Okay, I'm going to see it. I'm going to leave one. Okay, how about now? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So in any event, they're pretty similar in that, you know, the brain controls everything, you know, all of our internal body functions. And it's like it was the first original computer. And, you know, the human being, the brain knows, you know, that the body needs water to survive. And, you know, as long as, you know, that belief is a piece of the puzzle, then, you know, same thing. I mean, you fight to maintain sanity to prove you're not crazy for believing you need water to survive. And there's lots of studies that have actually shown, countless studies, not just a few, but countless studies that have identified and shown that, you know, people do superhuman things physiologically that were not possible, not, you know, even without divine intervention, based upon, you know, beliefs that are governing, you know, and chemicals that are released in their body and endorphins and what have you, you know, like the mother who lifts, you know, who lifts a whole car off of her, you know, child who's pinned underneath it. That answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah, somewhat. I mean, even like what you're doing that comparison is like, I think I heard something about, you know, like a professor where, you know, they were showing this one math problem and they were talking about how it was impossible, but there was a student that slept through it, woke up, wrote down the problem, didn't know it was supposed to be impossible, so went home and came back with the answer.
Yeah, exactly. You know, beliefs are very powerful. You know, that's why Jesus told us that it's according to what you believe. It's according to what you believe, your faith. It's according to what you believe. And when you don't know what the beliefs are, it's real easy to get stuck. And especially when you're a believer and, you know, you have the forces of darkness trying to hold you back and against you with, you know, all kinds of misperceptions and lies, you know, it can get sticky. You know, the good news is there's tools and strategies and biblical truths to turn it around. The bad news is they're not that widely known. They're starting to be now, but typically you don't learn how to renew your mind in church or about brain science at church.
That's good. And Steve, I want to quickly ask you just two quick questions. How do you become aware what your limiting beliefs are if they're so running in the background? And then the second question is, how do you overcome your limiting beliefs? Because obviously, if you have a limiting belief, let's say, for example, it's like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of it like you fear-based, for example. And then, but you don't really know that. So you think you're not, and how do you become aware of what it is? And then how do you begin to get some resolution so you don't run your company that way, or etc.?
Well, it's a process. I mean, the easiest way, the process that the Lord has given us uses scientific instruments like the culture instrument I showed you on the screen a little while ago to identify, you know, what's going on below the surface that we don't see.
Okay.
And then once you can identify, you know, what's going on below the surface that you don't see, and you know, learn the skills and tools to boil that down to specific beliefs individually as a leader, and then collectively with your team as an organization, there are, you know, techniques and tools, you know, to renew your mind, how to change beliefs, you know, how to reprogram the human computer. And they're all in the Bible. I mean, they're all in the Bible. They're just not spelled out intentionally because, you know, Jesus didn't want everybody to know these. He just wanted those who willfully sought him to have the opportunity to realize them. And, you know, our ministry is basically about helping folks, you know, learn the techniques and the tools and how to do it. And it's not like a snap your fingers one time deal. It's an ongoing process. I mean, it's something most of the people that come to our workshops to learn how and get our AI driven mobile app and are serious about it, you know, end up using the tools that they learn for the rest of their lives.
Agreed. That's good.
And again, it's amazingly, if we had more time, I could show you more case studies. I mean, like the time that Toyota was fined $1.2 billion for handling a safety problem like a PR problem, and they hired us to turn that around, and they went from number 27 in their employee engagement internal survey to number 1, and got past the worst scandal in the history of their industry, and produced a 2% market share increase following that transformation. But it's not rocket science. It is science. It's all biblically sound. And I mean, in their tools, like I said, Dallas Baptist University licenses our curriculum for their MBA program. They have a class called MANA 5300, I think it's called, Professional and Career Development, so that the next generation of leaders can, learn the tools, in advance and take advantage of them.
That's good. That's good, man. Steve, just 2 quick questions, and then I know we're running off of time here. Normally we have a chance to go around the whole group, but I think we're just too close to the line here. But real quickly, one is, obviously, this is great. I mean, I think everything you gave us there was gold. Like, I experienced some of this last time, and it was just phenomenal, mind-blowing. I know you got some in-person conference coming up. I know you had that on your screen before your computer gave us a bit of a hiccup there. So if we want to send that to Melissa, we'll make sure everybody gets it that was in the Zoom today. That's the first thing. The second question I have for you is, do you do regional events? Like, do you travel around the country and do events? And when's your next one up close to Michigan or in Michigan? And then the last, I guess, piece of the question is, do you do Zoom events?
So, and actually, I was trying to sign on again, so I could give you a QR code, but that's okay. I'll send it.
I got it.
Let me get this also. Okay, now you can hear me. So in any event, most of the work we do is inside companies, organizations on specific projects. 3 times a year, we do open workshops that any leader from any company can attend and participate. One in October, one in July, another one in March. And these are both live in-person events and their virtual live feed webinar simultaneously. So people can't travel, they can participate, online, and actively experience the process, whether they can travel or not. But, the rest of the work that we do is typically inside companies, and it's customized to individual situations, or sometimes, in the universities, in the, the MBA classes for folks who have our curriculum license, folks will, students will participate and experience the content there.
Good. So there's some easy handholds. So you do have some live events coming up. I'll make sure that the guys in the circle, Melissa and I always put together a sort of a summary email of some kind. Normally in about 2 weeks or so, I'll send it out, and I'll put in that information there, especially for you. I think you had the next event, your October event, coming up here.
October 7th and 8th. And if you guys are interested in attending that 2-day event, either in person or in the virtual live feed webinar, just let Rod know, and then we have a early enrollment discount that you can get some investment savings on it by signing up early, because these typically fill up. And then I'll send the details. I'll email the details to Rod. But if you are interested in participating, it's a 2-day event, October 7th and 8th, and you can participate in person or live feed webinar. And then as a part of it, you receive a mobile app that's AI driven, that you walk out with the mobile app having an action plan that you create inside of it. And then there's 10 weeks of audio sustainment podcasts, 2 a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, so that you can sustain your transformation process. It's not a one and done. It's a beginning, and then it's something that folks, transition into forever. And I'll send the link to, or you can check it out, excellentcultures.com. Just go to the resources menu and look at the workshops. And if, like I said, if you're interested in attending, let us know, and we'll send you the early enrollment discount coupon.
Rodney, I sent it to you in an email already.
Thank you, man.
Yay.
Yeah, let's see if we can follow up on that. I know we're out of time today, so we'll keep talking. Steve, thank you again for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys. And then, Rod, send me your mailing address so I can send the books to you, and you can get them out to all the winners.
Thank you so much. I'm looking